Sådan der. Nu er der lyd. Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3. If I unmuted my microphone, you could hear me. Welcome to Coding Pirates Billund. We will start on a new game today. As you can see on my screen, I already have the program Scratch open. So if you haven't found the program yet, you can find the link in our description below the live stream. That way you can download the same program and get to the same point as me. We will create a game that we call a clicker game. So we're basically just gonna click a lot and make numbers go up. But I will show you how to do it, and if you just follow along, and hopefully you will be able to make the same as I. If you have any questions or feel like it, you are more than welcome to write in the chat, or if you are part of our Discord, you're also welcome to write anything in there. I know Jan is there to answer any questions you should have. Let's see if I can get my microphone out of the way here. So I think we should get started. So Scratch, when we start, it usually just, oh wait a second, I can see my Scratch here is in Danish. So I want to change this into English first. You do that on the globe here on the top left. You can find a lot of different languages, but I want to choose English. There we go. Now it might make more sense to more people. So, as I mentioned, the game that we are making the next few times will be a clicker game, which means that we're gonna click on something and then we're gonna change a number a lot. And we're gonna make it go faster and faster depending on different power-ups that we're gonna make. So to begin with, we need the item that we're gonna click. We could go with the default cat here, but I think I want to go with something different. So let's go and find a sprite, an image here in Scratch. At the bottom right here, you find a cat icon. If you simply click the cat icon, you will go into Scratch's library where you can see a lot of different images. And you can choose whatever you like. You don't have to pick the same as I, but you're more than welcome to. And I think I want to be clicking on a balloon. Yes. So simply click it and it will already be entered into your game. The screen here on the top right is the game area. This is where the game is happening. In the center here is where we're gonna write all our code, or we're gonna build our code, because we're gonna use the blocks here on the left. So since I chose this balloon to be my character and I don't actually need the cat, I can go down here on the bottom and actually just remove it by pressing the trash can on the top right of it. That way you will remove it out of the game, because we're actually not gonna need the cat since I'm going with the balloon. So I wanna have this in the center here. And I want something to happen whenever you use the mouse over it and then click it. Something should happen. So I think it could be interesting to just have it spawn smaller balloons whenever you click it, and they will disappear after, let's say, 1 or 2 seconds. So let's see if we can make something appear whenever we click our first balloon. So we have to go to the code section here, which is currently empty. It doesn't have anything, so let's see if we can add some code. All our code blocks are on the left, and they are all grouped in different colors, doing something special. All the blue ones are for moving things. In our situation, we want to create more balloons, basically. So we need something, I believe we find it in control. These orange blocks. There's a block at the bottom here saying create clone. Actually, I'm gonna move that a bit closer. You can take with your mouse, click it, and then drag it into the center here. Now we have this one block. This one reads that we are gonna create a clone of myself, and this is the balloon in this scenario. So for this one, for this to work, we need to add a block that starts whenever we start the game. The way you start your game is by clicking the green flag above the game screen, and to stop it again, you click the red one right next to it. But currently we don't have any blocks that is starting whenever we click the green flag. You will find these in the yellow ones, events. There's one at the very top here that says when flag clicked, we do something. And if we try now, you can see very quickly that it just blinked. If I keep clicking it, you can see it blinks, because in code it only happens once. So it only happens the exact second that we click the green flag, unless we tell it to do it over and over and over again. So I'll quickly show you how you will do this. So in control, right here, find one called forever. This is like a block that you can put blocks inside. It has like this hole here. Drag that into the code screen, and then actually take your create clone here, and then add those two together and add it all to the green flag. If you now press the green flag, you can see it has this yellow edge around it, means that it's currently active and it doesn't blink like it did before. And now you can see I'm actually able to stop the game and start the game because it keeps running. So what will this do? This actually creates a million of clones, as you can see, but in the same spot as the first one. So you can simply just drag them out from there. At some point you might get so many balloons that the game will actually crash, so we want to avoid that because we don't want the game to crash, even though this looks funny. All the clones that we are creating will actually disappear when we stop the game, as you can see. Because we're only creating the clones while we are actually playing the game, which is good, because that way we don't have to, down here at the bottom, add like multiple balloons that we would need. So we can just use one instead of, let's say, 100. So we are saving us some time here. But so we need something to happen whenever we click it. I think the first task here would be able to change the color of the balloon. And you can see we start out, or in my case, I start out with a blue balloon. To change how it looks, we can go into costumes here on the top left. And you can see my balloon already comes with 3 different colors here on the left. So one cool trick that we can do is, if we go back to the code, and we're gonna save this piece of code that we just made, but we're just gonna detach it from the green flag, which means that this code is not running anymore before we add it to the green flag again. So we're just gonna save it down there, and instead we're gonna add a new forever, an empty one. But this time we're gonna ask a question to our game, to the computer. And to ask a question, if something is being clicked or something, a keyboard is being pressed, we need our if block, which is right below it. This block has an empty spot here between the text. This is where we're gonna put in a question. We're gonna ask, is the balloon being clicked? And then we will change the color, which will happen in here. So add these two together and then add it to the green flag. So where do we find the questions that we're gonna add, or the question block? We can find these in the light blue blocks. These are called sensing. And actually, I think we have it. It should be the first one here. Let's see, let's try the first one. You can see this one is when it's touching, then it's gonna do something. We can try this. I think this will just keep changing. So you can take these sensing blocks and add them into the empty spot here by dragging it over. So simply move it over and it will go in into the block. It still doesn't do anything because we have not added anything in between here. So to change the color, in my case, to change the costume, I simply can go into the purple blocks. The purple is for looks and for every graphic, or if you want to change the looks of something, that's definitely in the purple ones. In here we have a simple block called next costume. So it's simply gonna pick the next costume that we have available. So To test it, I'm simply gonna press the green flag and see what happens if the mouse cursor I have here, if that one is touching the balloon. You can see it changes color, but it does it whenever I just have the mouse over the balloon. I want it to only happen whenever I click it. So we need to change our sensing block here. So I'm gonna take this one out and remove it again by dragging it over to the left and stop my game because I don't want it running while I'm doing coding. Going back into sensing, let's see if we can find a key that, or a block that will match the thing that we need. And I think we have one here. Mouse down. Yes, try this one. This will work a bit differently. So if we put this one inside here and start the game once again, you can see it doesn't happen, or nothing happens whenever I go over the balloon. But when I click it now, it changes. But it's still not all the way there, because if I just hold down left click on the mouse, and I can actually do that anywhere, it will just change the colors again like it did before, super fast, and not being in control. But there should be a fix for this, so let's see if we can find it. So right now we can change it by actually clicking, but we only want it to happen once we click. And let's see if we can find a combination of the two. So we only want it to happen when we are actually touching the balloon, and then when we're clicking. So we need to add the same one that we had before, where it's touching the mouse pointer. This is the mouse that you're moving around. Here we actually need to add another question block. So go back into control and find if, and then add the first question that we had. And we can actually put this one inside it, so we have two questions, something like this. So first it's gonna check, do we have, or is the mouse actually over the balloon? And then it's gonna check, is the mouse being pressed? So now I shouldn't be able to click anywhere on the screen. So let's see if this works. You can see I can click anywhere now. I'm trying to click, holding the mouse down. Nothing works. But the second that I'm over the balloon, I can do it. So almost there. Now we just need to make it only happens once we click, instead of when we're holding down the mouse and it just keeps going. Because we only want it to happen one time when we click it. So we need to put something in there that checks if we are clicking the balloon. So let's see what we can do here. Mouse down. Let's go back into the question blocks, the sensing. See if we can find a block that will do what we need it to. We have a mouse down. Let's see here. Let's try and add we can actually add a wait cooldown for it. So if we go into control, the orange ones, at the very top here, we have one called wait. This will make it so at least it's not gonna go super fast. So I'm gonna show you now. So when I'm hovering over it, it will change every 1 second now. Instead of, I think it was changing 30 times within a second before, which was too fast. But we're still not all the way there. But I think for now it's okay. So I'm gonna stop the game. Now we can click the balloon and only the balloon. Now we need, as I mentioned, this is a clicker game. We need to click the balloon as many times as we can, and then see how many times we can click it in one session. So we need a number that keeps counting up. So it's gonna say 1, 2, 3, and the amount of times that we actually managed to click the balloon. For this, we need to add a variable, and variables are super important for programming, so it's super important that we understand how they work and what we can use them for. So I'm gonna try and show you now what variables are. So in Scratch here on the left at the very bottom there's one called, I think it's a dark orange, it's called variables. So if you go in here, we actually already have a variable. And what a variable is a block. You can say it's a box that is holding something. So we are gonna put something in a box and then we can change the thing inside. So let me demonstrate this. So currently you should have one called my variable right here. And to the left of it, there should be a checkbox that you can click on, and then it will appear inside the game. I'm gonna change the name of mine, so you can right click it. This will give you a menu and you can actually rename the variable. So I'm gonna call mine number. So it's a number for me, and press OK. And now you can see in the game it says number and then 0. To make it go away from the game again, you can simply press the checkbox next to it. So now we have a variable in the game called number. So with a few blocks of code, we can actually, while we're playing the game, change the number depending on what we are doing in the game. If we're looking at the first piece of code that we made, this is happening whenever we, in our case, hold down the mouse on our balloon. And let's try and make it so when we either click it or hold down the mouse on the balloon, the number will keep going upwards. Like it will keep counting 1, 2, 3 and all the way up. And on the left here, still in variables, you have 4 blocks that you can use. In our case, we want to change what is currently inside the number box. So take the one that says change and add that into where we have the next costume. And it should say the name of your variable here. If it doesn't, you can simply click the name and then choose the correct one. And then keep it, so the number that is to the right of it is how much we're gonna change it. But to begin with, we're just gonna change it by 1. Let's try and test it and let's see what happens. It might not work, let's see. You can see when I start the game, it has the yellow edge again, meaning that it's active. And when I go into the game, trying to click anywhere but the balloon. But if I click on the balloon, you can see that it goes up. It keeps counting, and I could keep going on forever here, but I'm not gonna. It's gonna take too long time. So I'm gonna stop the game again. One thing to notice here is that our variable is now holding the number 8, and it will keep holding the number 8. As you can see, when I start the game again, it's still 8, so it will keep changing the number from 8 now, then to 9, then to 10. So it doesn't reset because we haven't told we haven't made a piece of code that will change the number back to 0. And we of course want the number to start at 0 whenever we start a new game. So let's try and quickly add that. So stop the game and move the code down a bit. And then I'm gonna add that as the first thing in our code. One easy way to add this is by looking here on the left again in variables. You can see we use the one called change because we're changing the number that is currently inside the box. Instead, this time, whenever we click start in our game, we want to set the number to something. So we're gonna put a specific number inside the box. And we have one above here called set number to 0. We can add that above all the other code that we have. So in between the green flag and the forever. And don't put it inside here. I will show you what this will do. It will set it to 0, but whenever I try to increase it by 1, it will keep going down to 0. So I will remove that again. So add it between the forever and green flag. So like this. So starting the game, it's at 0. I count up and see what happens. Stop the game. The next time I now start the game, my code will now change the number inside the box to inside our variable to 0. So clicking the green flag and it goes back to 0. You can choose any number that you want. If you want the players to start at 100, you can simply put in 100 here. That will put the number 100 into the box whenever we click the green flag, as you can see. But in our case, it makes more sense to have the number 0. So now whenever you start the game, it will always go back down to 0 because we're changing the number in our variable. And I keep calling the variable a box because we're just changing what's inside the box. I think that makes more sense. So stopping the game now. So now we have a reset for the game, and now we have a game that we can actually see who can last longest to click the balloon that we have. So we basically have the core elements of the game because it's just to see how long time you can click. So let's see if we can add some cool stuff there whenever we hit or click the balloon. Like I mentioned, having smaller balloons pop out of this one whenever you click it. And that's where the create clone that I showed you in the beginning comes in. So let's see if we can make that work. I'm just gonna move this around a bit. Scroll down. So to begin with, we're gonna use the create clone here, but we're gonna need a new green flag block. We could add it to the code that we have up here, but I like to split up the code so we can find another green flag and add that as well. It's okay to have multiple of these if that makes it easier for you to read. I like it this way, so I think this is a good idea. This didn't work the way that we actually wanted. If I start the game, I'll show you, because right now it's just creating clones all the time. As you can see, I can move these out and I have like, and it changes color as well. So that's super nice. But we only wanted to spawn balloons whenever we click it. And they should disappear by themselves after a certain amount of time. Let's see if we can make that happen. Okay, so we are gonna create a clone, and actually looking at it, so up here, what we have, the 3 blocks in here is whenever we click the clone or click the balloon, this should actually be where we are gonna create a clone as well. So our create clone of myself should actually be moved up here. And it doesn't matter where you put it in here, but it has to be inside the last if block that you have. I'm gonna put it at the beginning. So at the bottom here, we are actually gonna change our green flag into something different. And you can find this block in control at the bottom here. This one is called when I start as a clone. So this will happen whenever we are cloning one of our balloons. It will have that code attached to it. So we're gonna change the green flag here with a when I start as a clone. And you'll find that in control at the bottom. So it should look like this. So something will happen when it starts as a clone. Right now it doesn't have anything. As you can see, it's empty. But let's try and add some movement to it. And like I mentioned in the beginning, we have the motion blocks. These are blue. We can try and move it. Let's say with the first block here, it's this move. Let's try and bring this in. Currently it's moving 10 steps. But let's try something higher than that. Let's say 100 steps and see what happens. Let's change it into 100. You could even go like 9,900, but you can try and change the number. But I'm gonna go with 100 first. Okay, so first here, whenever we click the balloon here, we are creating a clone, and we also changing the number, and the clone will move 10 or 100 steps. Let's see what happens. You can see it shoots out to the right, all the way to the right, whenever I click it. Okay, stop the game again. It's not so cool. We want the balloons to go in different direction whenever we create one, and we also want them to be just a tiny bit smaller than the original balloon. But that should be possible to make. We just have to continue down here with the movement that we just made. So we're gonna add a few more blocks to this. And remember, all the blocks that we add in here will only happen for the clones that we are making and not the original one. And let's try making the size smaller of the clones. So again, if we're changing the looks, we have to go into the purple blocks. In here, there is a block called change size. Either the set size or change size. You can use both. I think set size is actually the better one to use here. And I'm gonna set it to be half the size of the original one. So that will be 50. And you can also make it larger if you want. You can try and put whatever number you feel like in here. But let's try and go with 50 first. Gonna start the game again. Click on balloon, and you can see I have a smaller version of it popping out to the right. Okay, good. Now I want them to spread out a bit more instead of going in the same direction all the time. And they are just grouping together over here. So with the movement, we can do something cool, just changing what we call angle, the direction where they're going. And again, now we are doing some motion, some movement. We're going back into the blue ones. And just below the first one that we have one called turn. You can either go to the right or to the left in which way you're turning. So it doesn't really matter which way you take. I'm gonna go with the right one. So now it's gonna turn 15 degrees to the 15 degrees to the right. If you don't know how much that is, you can click the number. Okay, that made my balloon disappear. Hello? Stop the game. Okay. So it changed my original balloon. And it shouldn't have done that. So let's figure out why it did this. So to make sure that our balloon, the one that we are clicking on, is not moving at all, we need something to set it in place and not being able to move. So I think we should at the top here, if you go up a bit, and this time we actually need a green flag again. So in the yellow ones, find a green flag. Here we're gonna force it to stay in the middle, have the same size, and be pointing in the same direction. For this we need the forever, because it needs to keep happening. So going into the control, which is where we have our forever, because it needs to keep happening, add that to the green flag. Now we're gonna add, I think it's 3 or 2 blocks. So first we need the position of our object balloon, if you have the same as me. So we're gonna move it into the center all the time. So in motion, where we move it, we have one that says go to. It should be somewhere on the top. It has go to X and Y. You don't know, have to know what the numbers mean. You can simply add the block here and say, if you put in 0, 0, that should be the center of the game screen. So then that way you should be okay. Next thing is I need the balloon to be turning up, to be turned the right way. So I have to change what we call direction, which way it's turned. And we can do that with point in direction. This is a bit further down. Point in direction, add that one as well. Start the game once again. And you can see when I started the game, it turned just a bit and it went into the center. The last thing is the size. Instead of having the size to be half the size, I want it to be 100%, or the full size. So go back into looks, find the set size that we used, and add that as well to 100%. There we go. So whenever I click it, yeah. That's good. You can see here on the outer edges that something is moving around and around and around. And this is actually the small balloons that are doing this. And I can demonstrate this by saying move one step and then start the game. And you can see just keep swirling around and around. And because you couldn't see it was because it was all the way to the right and just moving on the outer edges of the screen. So that means that we actually, at some point, we have to also remove the clone again, because we don't want it to be there all the time. We only want it to happen whenever we click. What's it called? Click our balloon or our object. If you have a cake or bananas here, that would also be pretty cool. But it's the same code to make it work. And it did it again. No, so this time I fixed it. So basically the code we have here in the beginning now is making sure that the original object is going back into place. So let's stop that. Let's make it disappear after 2 seconds. 1 second. I think 1 second. Let's see here. In events. No, actually go into control first. Let's see what we have in here. So we need one of the wait blocks that we used earlier. And let's see what we have in events here. Anything we can use. So it has to happen after a certain amount of seconds. What do we have? So when I start as a clone, yes. And then after. Okay, let's try this. So with this wait, instead of adding it to the current block that we have here, we gotta add another one of these when I start as a clone. Because if I were to add our wait in here, and I'm just gonna make it go a bit faster. So move, instead of 1, move 10. Let's see what happens. You can see it keeps moving, but it waits 1 second before it moves. And this is not the way that we want it. We only want it to disappear after 1 second. So we're actually gonna move this to a different block. And you can see the second I remove the 1 second, it just goes around and around again. So stop the game. And actually what we want here is that we don't want to change the size forever, and we don't want to turn forever. We only want that to happen once, so we can move the 2 blocks in between the first one and the forever, like we did up here. And make sure it's the set size and the turn, and have the move, because we want it to keep moving until we make it disappear. So let's see what this looks like. Now it shouldn't go around and around like it did before, but they should go in different directions. And they go in that direction all the time. Which means that we are always going in the same direction again. But we can change this. It's something that we call random numbers. So we're gonna choose a random number every time we click the balloon. And that random number goes into the turn here. And to find the random numbers, you go into the green ones. This is where we have a lot of math stuff. But we're gonna use the simple block here called pick random 1 to 10. So drag that onto the number 15. And the numbers that we're gonna put in here are gonna be 180, so 180. And the second number is actually the same, 180, but in front of it, you're gonna put a small minus symbol, a small dash. And that should be on the bottom right of your keyboard. So make sure that you have that thing in front of the second number. Let's see what happens. Stop the game and then start it again. Now they should be going in random direction every time I click it. As you can see, they do. Perfect. Wonderful. So every time we click it and the number keeps going up here. And the game is not working 100% yet. Because when I just hold down left click, it will just keep going by itself. On the top right here, we can actually make this game bigger. There we go. So we didn't add the balloons to disappear by themselves. So let's see if we can add this. On the top right here, I can go out of full screen. So with the same piece of code here, we're gonna add the wait and then make it disappear after a set amount of seconds. So I'm gonna say 1 second here, wait 1 second. But as I mentioned before, we're gonna find another one of these when I start as a clone, which is in control, the orange at the bottom, and add that to the 1 second. So after the 1 second, we are gonna make it disappear, which means that we are gonna delete it from the game. And there's a block here at the bottom as well that says delete this clone. This is important. So try and add that to the bottom here. And to make this more simple, I'm gonna put these next to each other. So these two pieces of code are for all the clones that we are creating of all the balloons. Let's see if they disappear after 1 second. Hopefully they do. Oh, they disappeared. But they reached the edges first. So let's make them disappear before they reach the edges. So we're actually gonna choose a number that is lower than 1. And to do this, you delete the number 1 and then press the dot on your keyboard. That should also be on the bottom right of your keyboard, a small dot, and then put the number 5. This is half of 1. And let's see what happens. And they disappear close to before. Yeah, they disappear now before they hit the edges. So I'm gonna remove the 1 second I added here first to when we are clicking our balloon, to make this look a bit more wild. So whenever I hold down the mouse, it's gonna first of all count upwards super fast, but it's also gonna spawn a lot of balloons. But they will disappear, which is okay, so we are not crashing the game by doing this. Actually, I'm gonna make the game large again. As you can see. I think changing the color of the balloon, yeah, we can change that, but it looks pretty cool. Hopefully you were able to follow. As you can see in here in the full screen, There is one thing when you're not in full screen. As you can see, I can pick up the balloon, which makes it not work when you just hold it down because you're picking it up. So let's see if we can find a block of code that makes it not able to do that, because that kind of destroys the game whenever we are picking up the balloon. There should be a block for this. Let's see. When clicked, let's see, is it a control block? No, I think it's, let's see, set rotation, turn, is it a sensing block? Yes, here. In sensing, the light blue, we have one called set drag mode. This basically means that you can drag it around. We don't want that, we want it to be fixed in that location. So find this set drag mode, and this is gonna be in the code we have here in the very, very beginning as the first thing, because we are gonna set the drag mode once. And if you have the block here, change it from draggable to not draggable. Now when we try the game, apparently still able to move it. So that did not work. Let's see if we can figure out why this is not working. Stop the game. Maybe it actually has to be in there forever. Let's see. Start the game. Now it keeps doing that. A block that says it does something, but actually doesn't. Set drag mode, not draggable. And it only does this whenever you are have the code next to it. If you go full screen, you're actually not able to do it, as you can see. So there's something we need to figure out why it's happening. And you can see it only happens, it only spawns balloons whenever I'm actually hovering with my mouse over the balloon. But it looks pretty cool. And you can see my numbers going up all the way whenever I stop the game and start again. We start back at 0. So I think that's what we made, or how much we're gonna make today. Next time we are gonna keep continuing on this game. Next time we will be adding a simple store where you can buy upgrades depending on how many balloons you have popped. Or if you chose a cake or banana, that doesn't matter. We're just gonna, depending on how big the number is, we can buy upgrades, making us able to get more points faster. That's the idea about the clicker game. But right now we have the beginning, and I think this is pretty cool. We're also gonna add some more graphics, a background, and all that cool stuff. But that's it for today. Hopefully you were able to follow my instructions here, but if you didn't manage to get it all, this live stream will be on YouTube as a video that you can keep watching as many times as you want, and you can simply use the same link that you did for today. But we will also be on our Discord server, which there is a link to on our Facebook group. So you can talk with us for the next half hour. If you should have any question, it doesn't have to be related to what we made today. If you have any other questions, we are also available and we'll be answering them there. So hopefully you enjoyed today, and I will see you next time.